Hey, this is Todd. We're living in Daytona Beach, and you might be able to tell from my environment behind me that I'm not actually in Florida right now. I'm actually in my home state of Oregon. This is kind of like the road trip edition. Well, today on Living in Daytona Beach, I'm going to talk a little bit about veteran buyers, VA buyers, and what this, there's a brand new regulation that's coming down from the National Association of Realtors. And we're going to discuss a little bit about how that affects you as a VA buyer and what you need to know ahead of time as we come up on August 17th, 2024 with all these different buying changes. That all comes up right now. Hey, this is Todd living in Daytona Beach, and as always, if this is the first time to the channel, go ahead, hit subscribe and the bell so you never miss a thing about living in Daytona Beach. And of course, if you are moving in 3 days to 3 months, 9 days to 9 months, if you're moving to Florida, moving to Daytona Beach, moving to the Daytona Beach area, go ahead. Give us a call, text, email, or set up a Zoom video call because we want to make your move memorable. Well, today we're going to talk about the new National Association of Realtor changes and how that affects VA buyers. So let's get to it. First and foremost, let's discuss where these changes came from and why they're being implemented. About a year ago, close to a year ago, the National Association of Realtors came under fire with some lawsuits from home sellers that actually had stated that agents within the industry, within the real estate industry, had been charging a set amount for commissions. What was the outcome of the lawsuit? Well, it was determined by the federal court that the National Association of Realtors was at fault for not overseeing some of these real estate agents that were charging a set amount for real estate commissions. Now, it has been stated, and it is a wide known practice by many real estate agents that there is no set commission rate. If you are working as a buyer or a seller specifically, and even a buyer, there is no set commission rate. All commissions that are given to an agent, whether they be a buyer or a seller, those commissions are completely negotiable. Always have been and always will be. Okay, so what changes are happening dramatically? Well, August 17th, 2024, real estate agents will no longer be able to describe or display compensation for a buyer agent on the multiple listing service or the MLS. This is a platform, a computer platform that is used by many real estate agents in order to sell properties. So how does this affect the buying process? Well, up to this point, the buying process was fairly simple. If you were selling your home and you were wanting to use a real estate agent to help you sell the home, the real estate agent would sit down with you and negotiate what their commission was, whether that be 8%, 5%, 2%, 3%, whatever it may be, or 4%, whatever the percentage was that the agent and the home seller would decide on, because after all, they are negotiable. So let's say, for instance, you decide, your agent and yourself selling your home, you decide that the commission will be set at 4%. That's 4% you will give to the selling agent. From there, a selling agent will decide how much of their compensation that they would give to a buyer agent. That is, an agent that would bring a buyer for the home they're trying to sell. In the case where a selling agent might charge 4%, they can decide to give 1% of their commission to the buying agent, 2% of their commission to the buying agent, 3% of their commission to their buying agent, because after all, the seller of the home is giving the selling agent a commission, and from that commission, the selling agent would decide how much they're going to give the buying agent. Where all that is going to be going away. And all that was typically described and displayed on the multiple listing service, the MLS. That is all going away. Now, compensation will still be taking place, but just in different areas, different factors. There's going to be compensation agreements. There will be discussions outside of the MLS where buyer agents can have discussions with the selling agent and discuss how that compensation is going to be made. So, how does it affect you? Well, that's the one factor, is compensation and who pays for it. We'll get to that in just a second here. So what are some extreme changes that are going to be taking place? Well, from now on, it's going to be required, it will be required that you as a buyer of a home, if you're going to preview a home with a buying agent, or you're going to preview a home that's being shown by the selling agent, you will have to sign an agreement. It's true, you have to sign an agreement. Otherwise, we as real estate agents are not allowed to show you that home. Now, before you get too concerned about it, these agreements aren't set in stone for specific time frames or time periods. It might be to show one home. It might be to show 10 homes. It might be for a specific amount of time, let's say for a week, maybe 30 days. So it'll be a form that you will sign as a buyer and your agent will sign. It'll have a determined amount of time that it'll be set for. And if you don't like the agent or don't like the home, then when that document, when that form, when that agreement is over with, time frame wise, you can go on and use a different agent and of course view a different home. What other changes will be happening? Well, you'll be signing an agreement with a buying agent that will set a commission rate. Now, here's where it gets strategic, okay? So if you're a buyer and you're working with an agent and your agent is looking at a home, you're looking at a home to buy, but for whatever reason, the seller and the selling agent are not offering any type of commission, that requirement, that responsibility will be falling back to the buyer. That was you, the buyer, will have to be responsible for paying that commission. How does this affect veterans specifically? Well, up until recently, the VA had regulations to where a veteran could not pay a buyer agent commission out of pocket. They were not allowed to do so. So how exactly does that work out for a veteran that wants to buy a home, but yet the seller is not offering any type of commission? Well, a few things. Recently, within the last few weeks, the VA actually has temporarily lifted the ban on whether or not veterans could pay for their buyer agent. Now, that's the one good factor. Now, the downside to that is that if you're a veteran, you're buying a home, you're getting your loan for the home, that's one thing. But if you have a commission to pay to your buyer's agent, that will come out of your pocket if the seller is not offering any type of commission or compensation. Okay, so the VA has lifted the ban on whether or not a veteran can actually pay for their agent's commission, the usage basically of the agent's services. So that's the one good factor. The other good factor, and something that you need to talk to your buyer agent about, is when buying a home and when you're about ready to make the offer on a home, make sure to talk to your agent, because within an offer, you can actually ask a seller to cover your agent's commission. Now, up until this point, it wasn't allowed for you to ask any type of concession. Well, it wasn't allowed for you to ask any type of commission from the seller to pay for your agent, your buyer agent. The good news is that asking for commission coverage for your buyer agent doesn't count against your 4% cap for asking for seller concessions. So that's a good thing. It's outside of that 4% cap that the VA has placed on how much you can ask for concessions from your seller. Concessions, of course, are monies that you ask from the seller to cover certain things. Basically, can cover whatever the buyer deems reasonable. So what are some things you can ask your agent, your buyer agent, before you start the process? For one, make sure that your buyer agent goes through all the documents with you. That's going to be a showing agreement, that is an agreement before you see a property, a buyer and agent agreement. That's going to be a document that's going to be discussed. Commissions are going to be discussed on that. So you're going to come to a negotiated commission rate, whether that be a set amount, whether it be a percentage of the actual purchase price of the property. But you and the buyer agent are going to discuss that and sign a document to that. Another thing to ask your agent is, how can we write the offer for a property you want to purchase? How can we write the offer to where buyer agent commissions can be covered? If not all, at least a percentage of that or part of that commission. Now, you always want to be able to write an offer to where you can ask the seller to cover the cost of your agent. That's what you want to do. That's the best case scenario. And so always ask your agent to please place in the offer some sort of language that asks whether or not they will be willing to cover the cost of your agent cost. And also, lastly, the thing to ask is, okay, so if the seller comes back and says they will not cover the cost of your commission, make sure to go back over your original buyer agreement with your agent to find out what their commission cost is. So whatever you offer on the home and is accepted, you will either pay a set fee that you and your agent will decide on, or you'll decide on a percentage that you and your agent decided on. That will be what you as the buyer will be responsible for paying your agent for services rendered. We're still fairly early on in the process. In fact, at the moment of this video, it's before August 17th. So there's still going to be some modifications coming down and new regulations coming down. But your agent, your buyer agent, and even selling agents will have all the knowledge that you need. And they will share with you as changes come to the buying process. In simplest terms, real estate agents are there to help you in the buying process. A buyer agent is there to make sure not only that you are finding the property that fits your needs and your wants, but also to ask all the important questions before you purchase a home. This is one of the biggest goals, one of the biggest endeavors, one of the biggest moments in your life is to buy a home. Buyer agents have all the information as far as how VA loans go and what you're allowed to do as a buyer. So the good news is the real estate industry is still alive and active. If you have any questions with the buying process or need additional resources, please do not hesitate to reach out. You can call, text, or email. We'll get you all the resources in your hands. We even go through the resources with you. So this is Todd and living in Daytona Beach. As always, I look forward to seeing you at the beach.